Frank Vogel. Wow. Talk about being thrown under the bus by ownership and players. Frank Vogel has been fired by the Suns as their head coach. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Frank Vogel getting fired by the Suns as their head coach. Despite only being a head coach for one season on the Suns, it now seems like Frank Vogel will be used as the scapegoat of the Suns underachieving in the NBA playoffs once again. However, this move is being clowned upon by actual basketball fans as it makes Kevin Durant look like a coach killer once again. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. Did the Suns make the right move to fire Frank Vogel? Nope, not at all. I believe the Phoenix Suns made a massive mistake firing Frank Vogel. Now, let me make myself very clear on where I stand with Frank Vogel. I'm not a Frank Vogel fan or anything like that. I'm not really that high on Frank Vogel as a head coach, but do I think it was a mistake to move off of him after one season? Absolutely. I don't know how the Phoenix Suns expect to build any continuity in the organization whatsoever when they are changing coaches left and right. And I understand that they just hired Mike Budenholzer as their head coach. Mike Budenholzer is a former NBA champion and a former Coach of the Year winner. And obviously, Mike Budenholzer is pretty good in the regular season. But the Phoenix Suns don't have problems in the regular season. Their performance in the regular season has actually been just fine. In fact, it has been more than fine. It has actually been really good. You look at how the Phoenix Suns have made the playoffs in each of the last 4 seasons. You look at how the Phoenix Suns have a pretty solid core in general. At least they're top heavy. They've got Kevin Durant, who's one of the best scorers in the game of basketball. They've got Devin Booker, who's a really good 2 guard in the NBA. He's a solid player. He can shoot the basketball really efficiently. Then they've got Bradley Beal. I know he had a down year this year for the Phoenix Suns, but we have seen Bradley Beal be a good scorer in the past. Speaking of Bradley Beal, though, I feel like that is the guy that the Phoenix Suns should be holding accountable right now, because Bradley Beal ended up underachieving for the Phoenix Suns this year. You look at how the Phoenix Suns traded for him last June with the expectation that he would help the Phoenix Suns become title contenders in a stacked Western Conference. That didn't happen. And obviously, you look at how Frank Vogel, he's a defensive-minded head coach. He's about as defensive-minded as you can get in the National Basketball Association, and yet they gave him pieces where they did not play good defense whatsoever. You look at how their star players, they refuse to play defense or they're incapable of playing defense. Obviously, we know Frank Vogel has a history of producing good defenses when you give him the right personnel to work with, particularly when he has big men that can play good defense on that side of the floor. But obviously, Frank Vogel didn't have that to work with. You look at how Frank Vogel was supposed to be a defensive mastermind, but they give him all these offensive pieces and they say, okay, Frank Vogel, go ahead and make the most of it. You look at how Kevin Durant, he doesn't play defense at all. He hasn't really played defense ever since he left the Golden State Warriors. You look at how Devin Booker, yeah, he can play a little bit of defense, but let's be honest, are you relying on Devin Booker to get a stop for you late in the game? Heck no, you're relying on Devin Booker to score points for you. And of course, Bradley Beal doesn't play any defense whatsoever, but the Phoenix Suns should have already known that Bradley Beal doesn't play any defense whatsoever. You look at Bradley Beal on the Washington Wizards, he didn't ever play defense in there one time. You look at how Bradley Beal, all he did was score the basketball on the Washington Wizards, but that's honestly because he jacked up 30 shots a game. Of course, he was going to average 30 points a game. If you're taking that many shots a game, of course, you're going to lead the league in scoring. And obviously, Bradley Beal took advantage of being on a bad Wizards team and enhanced his statistics. Obviously, now that he joined a winning organization, he got himself exposed, and now it's pretty clear that Bradley Beal is not that good of a basketball player. Now, don't get me wrong, is Bradley Beal still a productive player compared to most players in the NBA? Absolutely, but Bradley Beal is not the superstar player that a lot of people thought he was. The reason why everybody thought Bradley Beal was so good was because he was able to score the basketball and he racked up a lot of points, but he only racked up a lot of points because the Washington Wizards really didn't have a good number 2 option throughout his tenure on the Washington Wizards. So by the time he got to the Phoenix Suns and he had to play winning basketball, he got himself exposed. And obviously, when your star players don't play defense and you have a defensive-minded head coach, that's a recipe for disaster. There is no defensive scheme for your top 3 players refusing to play defense. If your top 3 players on your team are not playing defense, there is no scheme to cover that up. And when you watch the Phoenix Suns in the NBA playoffs this year, nobody was thinking, oh man, Frank Vogel's a terrible head coach. You're thinking, why isn't Bradley Beal playing up to his contract? Why is Devin Booker choking in the playoffs really hard? And why isn't Kevin Durant stepping up and being the leader? I know Kevin Durant was talking about how the coach is the leader, but come on, KD, you're supposedly a top 5 player in the league. You're supposedly one of the greatest scorers ever. But ever since you left the Golden State Warriors, you've basically turned into a rich man's version of Carmelo Anthony, which is not a compliment that I'm trying to give out. Obviously, you look at how Carmelo Anthony in his prime was a great scorer, but he could never win, and he never bothered to play any defense whatsoever. And that's essentially what Kevin Durant has turned himself into. Yes, he's still a great scorer. Yes, he can still score points quite efficiently, but he doesn't really play defense anymore the way he used to. And obviously, he gets coaches fired all the time. Last week, I roasted LeBron James for constantly changing coaches all the time and never having any stability around him. Now, what do you think I'm going to do when I see Kevin Durant try to copy LeBron James and do the same thing? And that's the issue that I have with Kevin Durant, man. Kevin Durant just wants to change teams, change coaches, change players, and run away whenever the going gets tough all the time. And eventually, you get sick and tired of that. Look, I'm not saying that Kevin Durant should have stayed in OKC for his entire career. Look, you can't win a championship with Russell Westbrook as your starting point guard. I've said that at the time, and I'm going to stand by that take. I agree with Kevin Durant leaving OKC. That's fine. I have no issue with Kevin Durant leaving the OKC Thunder. But then this dude left the Golden State Warriors when he was in a great situation with Steph Curry and Steve Kerr. And you look at how the Golden State Warriors were the mecca of basketball. And Kevin Durant said, you know what? I'm not satisfied being on the second wheel to the table because I want to be the guy where I'm leading the team to winning a championship as the number one guy. But obviously, Kevin Durant didn't have the leadership qualities that it requires to take as a number one guy to win a championship. And obviously, he went to the Brooklyn Nets. He recruits Kyrie Irving in there. They pull a trade off for James Harden. Obviously, those three guys, they never really play a whole lot of basketball together because they spent the entire time getting injured, or one guy refused to get the vaccine, whatever it was. The point is, the Brooklyn Nets underachieved massively under Kevin Durant, but a lot of people overlooked that and said, you know what? Who can win with Kyrie Irving acting like a crazy man and finding every excuse in the book to miss basketball games? So they just said, the hell with it. Let's go ahead and break up the squad and let's send Kevin Durant to Phoenix, where he gets to form up another super team where he had Devin Booker, CP3, and DeAndre Ayton. I mean, that's a pretty good supporting cast to have. Of course, Kevin Durant, he gets a freak injury during warmups. That's why he missed most of the regular season for the Phoenix Suns, and he ends up playing the playoffs. He plays really good, but ultimately they fall short in 6 games to the Denver Nuggets. No crime is done there because obviously the Denver Nuggets, they were the world champions last season, and there's no shame in losing to the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. They're a good basketball team. I mean, look, LeBron James can't even get past 5 games against the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets, they're a really good basketball team for the most part, except for when they're playing against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But for the most part, they're a good basketball team. And then you look at how the Phoenix Suns, they panicked and traded away CP3 for Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal is not a true point guard. That's the problem that the Phoenix Suns have. The Phoenix Suns don't have a true point guard. That's where the blame should be laid. If anything, the general manager should have been fired for the Phoenix Suns. Now they think hiring Mike Budenholzer is going to solve all these problems. I don't think it's going to solve those problems at all. We know Mike Budenholzer is a good coach in the regular season. We know Mike Budenholzer is good at getting bad teams to overachieve. However, that's not what the Phoenix Suns need. The Phoenix Suns, they need a head coach that can make adjustments in the postseason, which Frank Vogel has proven to done in the past. And we look at how Frank Vogel was a world champion for the Los Angeles Lakers. The guy has won a championship in the past. He knows what it takes to win a championship in the National Basketball Association. I know Mike Budenholzer has also won a championship in there as well, but I have a problem with the Phoenix Suns ownership in the sense that it seems like they're just trying to buy their way into winning a championship. Look, man, I got a message to send to the Suns owner. You cannot buy championships in the National Basketball Association anymore. You have to build championship teams. You can't just go ahead and buy the most expensive coach, buy the most expensive players, get the best possible players, and try to form up a super team and say, okay, let's go ahead and microwave ourselves a champion. No, you can't do that in today's NBA. In today's NBA, you have to draft well, you have to develop these guys really well, and you got to get a good coach where you can actually implement those systems being put in place. And that's the issue that I have with Kevin Durant and the Suns ownership, because it seems like they fail to understand what it takes to win a championship in the modern NBA. Kevin Durant seems to think, okay, let me go ahead and form a big three where we don't play any defense, but we're historically awesome on offense. Let's combine all those factors in, and bam, we win a championship. That's the mentality of Kevin Durant. And when all else fails, I request a trade. I request to change my teammates. I blame blame the coach, and that's the issue I have with Kevin Durant. This is why I can never take Kevin Durant seriously in top 15 discussions all time. Yes, he's a great scorer, he's a great talent, but the guy constantly wants to change teams and change coaches all the time. This guy is on his 6th head coach ever since leaving the Golden State Warriors. For context, that happened in the summer of 2019, and hiring Mike Budenholzer is not going to save Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. They're going to get the same result they got this past season with Frank Vogel as their head coach. As far as what the Phoenix Suns didn't tell you about Frank Vogel, it's pretty simple. He was used as a scapegoat for the failures of the Phoenix Suns. If anything, the general manager of the Suns should have been fired. But more importantly, how about holding the players accountable? How about demanding the players to play better basketball? How about demanding Bradley Beal to actually play defense? How about demanding Kevin Durant to actually be a good leader for once? And how about tell Devin Booker to stop selling every time they get into the big games in the playoffs? We know Devin Booker is a good basketball player, but they need Devin Booker to be great in the playoffs. That just simply hasn't happened. I don't agree with the Frank Vogel firing, and I don't think hiring Mike Budenholzer is going to solve those problems. So that is why the Suns did not make the right move to fire Frank Vogel at all, as we all know Kevin Durant to be an extreme coach killer ever since he left the Warriors back in the summer of 2019. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dustin Tran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.